In today's video, I'll show you how you can create ClickUp automations. So let's get started. So here we are on ClickUp, and from here to create our automation is that you want to go here into one of the spaces that is in your workspace. And from here, you would want to click on automate right here once you are in the space. So click on that, and then from here you can now see the AI automations right here, like the summary, progress updates, and so on. And then once you hover your cursor over them, you'd be able to see on what they do. So this one summarizes the content of each task with a customizable output and so on. You could also create your own automation if you'd want to by clicking here. And as you can see, you can set up the trigger and then the action right here. But yeah, this is starting from scratch. So if you're a beginner, then probably is that the automation that you need is already made here in ClickUp. You can just go for the template so that you don't have to start from scratch. Like for example, you are in the marketing team, so you can go into marketing and then you'd be able to see a bunch of automations that is useful for marketing. Like for example, is that you could go for let's say email on status change, so you can click on that, and from here you would need to sign in first in order for you to be able to use this. But yeah, you get the gist. You'd be able to get an easier time if you already have the template right here that you're looking for or the automation that you want. But if you insist on starting from scratch, you can click there on add automation, and then you can now set up the trigger. So from here, you could now go for the task, subtask, or task or subtask, depending on what you want. So in here, you can now change the trigger on what you'd want it to be. So for example, whenever a task is created, so this is the trigger right here. So when a task or subtask is created, it will now perform this automation. And now from here, you can now see more options in here depending on the trigger that you have chosen. So you could go for created by API, automations, and so on. So I'm just going to select them all. And then you can always click here on add more condition. So basically by doing this is that you are adding more conditions. So on top of this task or subtask being created, it must also meet this condition right here in order for the automation to be triggered into performing this action. You could also see the flow of it right here. So when task or subtask is created, which is this one, and condition is true, which is the assignee right here, then the action will now be performed. So change status. So you could go for another action right here, like for example, add a comment right there. And then you can now input the comment that you'd want to be added and so on. You could also add more action to be completed when this automation is triggered. And then you could always add more and more and more. You could just choose that right here. So yeah, this is basically it on how you'd be able to create automations in here in the ClickUp. Important thing to note in here is that this is an AND logic. So if you add more conditions in here, all of them would have to be true or fulfilled in order for the automation to be triggered, as ClickUp doesn't support or logic like just any of the conditions here just to be met in order for the automation to be triggered. So it doesn't work like that. And then you could now name this automation. Let's say sample automation right here. I'm not going to be saving this because I haven't added the details. I'm just showing you on how it works and how you could do it right here. So yeah, it's a really simple automation right here that you could do on ClickUp if you'd want to start from scratch. And now you can click here and create, and it will now be created. And yeah, basically you'll be able to see your automation right here. And then now you can just enable that. And then the automation is now running, and it's just waiting for the trigger to be fulfilled, and it will now run the automation automatically. So that's it. Thank you for watching, and see you in the next one.